Hi. Sorry for the mess. Not sorry, actually, for the mess. I wrote you a little something. It's my mission statement. Start with the very basics. Episode 1. Acknowledge that one of the reasons I didn't know where to start was because of an obsession with my politics, my story, my perspective. I was under the impression that I had a way that was preferable to the highway, and that I was making content to show how I could be trusted to set the way. But I have no way. Time to break away from ideology and into a mindset of accountability and responsibility. Ultimately, all you have to offer as a storyteller is the model, the example, the insights, maybe. Ideology isn't that. A set of beliefs is meaningless. What you want is a standard for behavior, to encourage people to consider the world beyond their particular time, place, and perspective. How? By considering the world beyond my particular time, place, and perspective. That's So, undo my egocentrism and examine what's left after I strip my outlook from my glasses, my ideological colored context. I have a friend who always complains that I am too ideological, and I'm going to assume that he's right. The fact is that I've internalized an agenda, and this means that my analysis loses its value and its accuracy, because I'm always shilling an ideology in the mere phrasing of my analysis. But even the utopian ideals I hold, or that I have adopted, require more than obedience or adherence to them. So it would dilute their purpose. I'm not actually sure what I mean by that. Like, even if people were to adhere to these utopian ideals, it wouldn't work, or they would be diluted simply by the fact that people would listen to them. Because the point is not obedience to an ideal, but responsibility, shared responsibility, common responsibility. Is there morality? I cannot dismantle the ideology behind others' held beliefs while I stay blind to my own. Why address the splinter in another's eye while deliberately ignoring the beam in my own? In fact, trying to get them to adopt the same one I have. Lol, internet tribalism, the search for community really ruined my thinking. It is time to shed the curse of trying to be liked for having the right opinions. Dare to contraire, not by saying the quiet part out loud in service of normalizing the brutality of the status quo in humanity, which isn't real contrarianism, and still seeking allegiance with a group and the safety of power. Debasing yourself only shows your insecurity, especially if you play at doing it as brazenly as you can. This was a tangent. Socrates on YouTube would say, "I know nothing, but my ignorance isn't half so dangerous as your presumed understanding." And shouldn't we avoid complicating matters that we don't understand by meddling with them until reality fits our mode of the world again? Reality seems much too stubbornly itself to ever stay up to date with any societal or political models projected onto it. Note how the whole world project is in there. The whole word project is in there. But the whole world is, if people think of the world as a project. Anyway. It's quite an undertaking to demand of reality to adhere to your standards. It requires a lot of force, struggle, violence, and power. And lying to pretend that the project was a success. Because ultimately, all power dissolves merely into the violent and fruitless attempts to convince the subjugated that the power structure is really in control, you guys. The emperor knows he's got no clothes on. Trying to pass off his nudity as style is the reductio ad absurdum of the project of power. to get people to freely convince themselves that indeed 2 plus 2 equals 5. Or if they don't believe it, never to utter that in public and expend their own efforts to maintain the illusion on which their convoluted society is built. A bullshit job, if ever there was one. Getting the most talented, intelligent, and hard-working people in society to dedicate themselves to gaslighting the rest into accepting a completely ridiculous state of affairs as an inevitable, normal, neutral, and natural phase. To talk away the pressure and tension of an unnatural pose, as if the stress and tension is actually the source of stability. The creaking and groaning and fault lines and mess is somehow the singing harmony, beauty, and flavor of society. It's as if sadism on a societal scale is actually the height of common decency. Looking for different words there, but English is a second language. I think I can cut that out. We have never had more people in the same place, yet we've also never felt so alone. And we call it civilization. We've never been richer and more technologically advanced, yet people are starving and cold while the ecosystem is crumbling under our feet. And to point out these obvious paradoxes, it's divisive. I'm the divisive one. Like I'm the one making trouble for pointing it out. Well, the truth can never be made to serve a lie, and if I said I knew how to organize it, I'd be lying. I do have some beliefs about things we might try to at least see if we could reach other outcomes. But I want to discuss those on an equal level with everyone. I'm interested in politics, but I'm glad I've resisted the impulse to be a politician. My ideas are just as useless as yours. Their only merit is that I know them to be useless. But all the structures and concepts upon which we build society are opinions too. We could have a society that says, first things first, does everyone have a warm place to sleep? But we don't do that. People will freeze to death in the streets this winter, as they have every winter since at least before the Brothers Grimm. Tomorrow morning your local worker will find a body on a bench, but we'll still make sure that the electricity to keep the billboards blasting advertisements right there remain flowing. We're going to make sure oil companies get their subsidy checks, but there will be hungry children at the school where their propaganda has been incorporated into the curriculum. Nothing about our society is just the way it is. There's no such thing as normal. Norms are just standards we don't question. Very dangerous, stupid, unjust, and counterintuitive things have been deemed normal in the course of human history. I am blind to all the gross oversimplifications and something-centric rhetoric that I'm unwittingly spewing, even in this video. Because to me, I don't notice those things, because they're normal. That's how you overlook the beam in your eye. It's not even there for me. Please, point out my blind spots and splinters in the comments. It is the only way I'll learn. But notice something is that I promised that this would be a mission statement. And it's not very clear if I fulfill that promise. So to make things clearer, let's actually move on to the first essay. Dun, 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 dun. I had a dream this last night. I dreamt that people were making Zeppelin helicopter elevators up to the sky over Amsterdam. It doesn't have to be Amsterdam, but it seemed like Amsterdam. They're building what? Elevators? To where? Elevators to the sky. Just so they could do laundry with a view. In fact, just that they could rent out these floating Zeppelin laundromats for profit. Yeah. And it was, of course, terrible. Did I just say, of course? Let's elaborate on that. That's the foreshadowing. This is the premise of the video. But It made the point that people with capital could benefit from ruining things for the rest of us, and their right to profit does not supersede our right to live in as much peace and pleasantry as the planet that I was born into would have had in store for me if it had not been for your profit-seeking helicopter zeppelins. And if this is self-evident to you, you do not need to see the rest of this video. Go find something else. But if it does sound at all challenging, interesting, or silly enough that you want to hear my reasoning behind it, enjoy. Basically, freedom is when your right to launch 1,000 helicopters equipped with laundromats to make a buck does not encroach on my right to not have my habitat torched. And you denying that your Zeppelicopters are ruining the sky, air, and mood doesn't stop it from being an infringement on my rights. Although maybe a hydrogen zeppelin could be a thing. Right. Remember the divine right of kings? It's a birthright to rule a land. So, while strange women lying in ponds distributing swords is no basis for a system of government, something could be said that a right that can and arguably should be granted by the miracle circumstances of your birth is the right to live in a healthy planet. A planet each of us is held to account for in terms of making sure that we leave her a better place than we found. Self-evident yet? And too many of us rely on her to catch the negative externalities. Now we're really doing a tangent because I'm going to explain externalities. Externalities are an economic term for costs that the producer of a good or provider of a service is not paying for, but externalizing onto the environment. Women taking unpaid care of the household alone while men are working full-time at the factory is an example of an externality or an externalization. The cost of an absent member of the family is paid for by that family in terms of household work, care work, and family dynamics. But that's another topic that I'm sure has been covered better elsewhere than I could here. Feminist theory! But I'm sure we've all grown up with some awareness of the cost to our family dynamics incurred by the fact that parents leave the home for the majority of life to go get tired with nothing to show for it but some money. Anyway. Too many of us rely on her, the planet, or a strange woman lying in a pond. Imagine Ophelia by Millet. Actually, to catch the negative, too many of us rely on her to catch the negative externalities of our profit-seeking behavior, to the point where those of us simply born here have a reduced life expectancy, drinking known carcinogens and endocrine disruptors from our very first taste of breast milk, and then every drink of water, rain, wind, food that you can find. Yeah. I propose, therefore, that there's no profit until you've cleaned up everything that you made dirty in producing. Like, you're not allowed to go play video games until you've done your homework. There's no dessert until you clean your plate. There's no profit, dividends, or stock buybacks until you've reabsorbed all your externalities onto your balance sheet. And this includes cleaning up your output. No offsets, zero pollution. This should be a baseline. Oh, and there's another form of externalities. The positive kind. Input you didn't pay for. Those need to be taken into account too before you can say, profit was made. Taxpayer money that you receive directly in the form of subsidies, or indirectly in the form of benefiting from public expenditure elsewhere, like infrastructure, education, and a healthy and pleasing environment that pulls talented people for you to recruit from. Which is why you should actually pay your taxes. And corporate profit taxes should at least equal the tax rate of the employees who work there. That should be obvious, but it's somehow not. Let me know if I'm being ideological here. Well, that's the theme of this channel. Examining what is deemed normal Anyway, especially in monetary subsidies, if you're making a profit, you can pay these back first. There's zero reason why the practice of donating taxpayer money to shareholders of companies that need tax exemptions and subsidies just to stay in business should continue. There's zero reason for the practice of donating taxpayer money to shareholders of companies that need tax exemptions and subsidies just to stay in business. Companies that are deemed necessary, even though they could not make a profit under these circumstances, should be held in common by the people paying for them, with consent that they are indeed necessary. But that's just what I think. Let me know in the comments if I'm straying into the path of ideology. Alright, so what happens if under these circumstances a majority of businesses simply cannot operate? What? We can't pollute the world for free? Yes. Well, that would clean up a lot of space in the free market for human ingenuity to provide for our collective needs in new, innovative ways that take into account the reality of a living Earth system that we're all part of. I'm sure we'll think of something, some scrappy entrepreneur with a small loan of $1 million and a big dream will set up in their 3-car garage and get to work providing us all with a whole new wave of zero waste commodities to covet, right? Oh, and colonizing the public space with advocation, I did it on purpose, is also an externality for which, while Deco, this company, is making a profit, the public is obviously not adequately, let alone equitably compensated. Externalities! Okay, so let's wrap up loose ends. Or conclusion. You have a birthright as an earthling to live freely in a healthy, friendly, peaceful environment. The community, which includes you, should protect this right from impacts which encroach upon it. The earth, as the saying goes, is not given to you by your parents, it is loaned to you by your children's children. That's Wookiefoot. Anything which interferes with this baseline is very strange, but in our crumbling mess of a society, totally normal. That's probably why it's coming down. Roll credits. Anyway, that's what I dreamed tonight. How about you? Want me to interpret your dream? Send me an email at link in the description. Here's some title ideas. Let's elaborate. Let's think too vague. Externalities to general. Not normal. Nothing normal. I don't know, this was an enjoyable rant to write, but I don't know how well it fares as a video essay. But I'm just gonna upload it and write a slightly less crappy one next time. Peace.